April 16, 1945. A cluster of farmhouses south of Magdeburg, Germany. The world is ending in thunder. Not the distant rolling thunder of a summer storm, but a percussive, ground-shaking violence that splinters wood and cracks stone. For 19-year-old Ilse Brandt, a signals auxiliary of the Luftwaffe, the world has shrunk to the size of a damp, musty cellar. Above her, the floorboards of the farmhouse judder and groan. Dust and bits of dried mortar rain down with every new explosion, powdering her gray-blue uniform and catching in her throat. The air is thick with the smells of earth, cordite, and fear. The rhythmic tearing sound of an MG-42, one of theirs, had been a comforting, vicious heartbeat. Now it is silent. In its place comes a slower, heavier thumping, a Browning .50 caliber mounted on something big, something American. You are there in the dark with her, huddled beside a dozen others, a mix of weary, hollow-eyed Wehrmacht soldiers, boys from the Volkssturm who look no older than 15, and a few other female auxiliaries like herself. The man beside her, a corporal with a crude bandage wrapped around his head, is muttering a prayer, his words lost in the concussive blasts. The single telephone line she was tasked to maintain, the artery connecting this doomed outpost to a phantom command, went dead an hour ago. Now her job is gone. Her purpose is gone. There is only the waiting. A new sound cuts through the chaos, a high-pitched metallic scream followed by a deafening crash as the farmhouse roof collapses inward. Sunlight, shocking and alien, lances down into the cellar, illuminating a swirling vortex of dust and debris. Then comes the shouting. Not in German. It's a hard, guttural language she's only heard in propaganda films, the clipped, confident bark of the Americans. Boots thunder on the floorboards above, heavy, deliberate. Someone kicks open the cellar door. A silhouette stands there, broad-shouldered, a helmet obscuring his face. He holds a rifle, an M1 Garand she recognizes from her training manuals, leveled into the darkness. "Raus, Hendeholk, get out now." The words are a command, an absolute finality. There is a scramble, a collective intake of breath. The corporal next to Ilse slowly, painfully raises his hands. Others follow suit. Ilse feels a paralysis grip her limbs. Her mind is a frantic slideshow of images and warnings from the party newsreels. The depraved, gum-chewing Americans, the monsters who would show no mercy. Her training, her duty, her entire world for the last 3 years had been built on a foundation of absolute belief in the enemy's barbarism. Now the enemy is here. She is pushed from behind, stumbling up the rickety wooden steps and into the blinding daylight. The scene is one of utter devastation. The farmhouse is a skeleton, its walls blown out. A Sherman tank, its long 75mm gun still smoking, sits idly in the cabbage patch, its engine a low, powerful rumble. American soldiers are everywhere. They move with an unnerving, casual efficiency, their olive drab uniforms a stark contrast to the German field gray. They are so tall, so well fed. Their gear doesn't look worn and patched, it looks new, menacing. One of them, a sergeant with a Thompson submachine gun slung over his shoulder, is directing the prisoners, pointing with his thumb towards a muddy track leading away from the farm. Ilse joins the shuffling line of defeated Germans. Her uniform, once a source of pride, now feels like a target. She is acutely aware of being one of the few women. The American soldiers watch them pass, their faces a mixture of exhaustion, curiosity, and contempt. One of them, a young private with freckles, catches her eye. He says something to his friend, and they both laugh. Ilse's blood runs cold. She fixes her gaze on the muddy ground in front of her, making herself small, trying to become invisible. The war was lost. That much was clear. But for Ilse Brandt, another battle, a more personal and terrifying one, was just beginning.
The march lasts for hours, under a sky the color of wet slate. A cold, persistent drizzle begins to fall, turning the dirt track into a slick, grasping mud that sucks at their worn boots. The world has been leached of color. Gray sky, gray uniforms, the gray, expressionless faces of the American Guards from the 3rd Armored Division. They walk on either side of the column, a moving fence of steel and indifference. Their movements are economical, their silence more unnerving than shouts. Now and then you hear the clink of a canteen, the soft crinkle of a cigarette paper, or a low murmur in English. To Ilse, these are the sounds of an alien species. She walks with her head down, her body numb with cold and fatigue. Hunger is a dull, persistent ache in her stomach. The propaganda is a frantic whisper in her mind. She remembers the posters, the radio broadcasts by Goebbels, the dire warnings about what happened to German women who fell into enemy hands. The stories were vivid, brutal, designed to stiffen resolve and fuel hatred. Now, stripped of a weapon, a leader, a cause, all she has left is that fear. It is a cold, heavy stone in her gut. She risks a sideways glance at one of the guards. He is young, maybe her age, with a smudge of dirt on his cheek. He's chewing gum, slowly, rhythmically. When his eyes meet hers for a fraction of a second, his expression is utterly blank. No malice, but no pity either. Just a weary professionalism that is somehow more terrifying than open hostility. You are this soldier for a moment. You are Corporal Frank Miller. You've been fighting your way across Germany since the Bulge. You've seen too much, and all you want is for it to be over. These prisoners are no longer the master race or the fanatical enemy. They are just a collection of tired, scared people in worn-out uniforms. A problem to be managed. You march, you watch, you count the hours until you can get some hot coffee and a dry pair of socks. The girl in the gray-blue uniform is just one of many. Her face pale, her eyes wide with a fear you've seen 1,000 times before. You register her presence, and then you look away, back to the horizon, scanning for threats that probably aren't there anymore. The job is monotony punctuated by terror. This is the monotony. For Ilsa, every step is a descent. The landscape is a testament to the war's fury. Charred skeletons of panzer tanks lie askew in ditches. Villages are hollowed-out shells, their church steeples shattered. This was her homeland, and it is a corpse. The sight does not inspire anger or a desire for revenge, only a profound, soul-crushing despair. This is what they fought for. This ruin. Late in the afternoon, the column is herded off the road and into the courtyard of a large, partially destroyed brick factory. The high walls offer a brief respite from the wind, but the place reeks of decay and damp soot. A group of American officers stands near a jeep, looking at a map, their conversation a low drone. The prisoners are shoved towards a long, low building that might have once been a warehouse or a workshop. Its windows are shattered, and a large section of the roof is missing, open to the weeping sky. This is to be their cage. As they are pushed through the wide doorway, Ilsa stumbles on the uneven floor. Her hands fly out to break her fall, landing in a puddle of grimy, freezing water. She gasps, the shock of the cold shooting up her arms. She stays there for a moment, on her hands and knees, the fight gone out of her. It is in this moment of utter vulnerability that she feels a presence looming over her. She looks up. It's one of the guards, Corporal Frank Miller. His M1 rifle is slung over his shoulder, and his face is shadowed by his helmet. He's just standing there, looking down at her. He says nothing. The other prisoners flow around them like a river around a rock, eager to find a dry corner in the cavernous, dark space. But he doesn't move. He just watches. And Ilsa's heart begins to pound, a frantic drum against her ribs. She has been noticed. She has been singled out.
The great hall of the factory is a cathedral of misery. Cold drafts ghost through the broken windows, carrying the scent of rain and rust. The remaining prisoners, several hundred of them, settle into huddled groups on the concrete floor. The light is failing, and the cavernous space sinks into a deep, foreboding gloom. The only sounds are the drip of water from the broken roof, the occasional cough, and the low, defeated murmur of German voices. It is a collective sigh of a broken army. Ilsa finds a spot against a cold brick wall, pulling her knees to her chest, trying to conserve what little warmth her damp uniform holds. The chill from her fall has seeped deep into her bones. She is shivering, a violent, uncontrollable tremor that racks her entire body. It's not just the cold, it's the shock. The adrenaline of the capture has worn off, leaving behind a raw, exposed nerve of fear. Every shadow seems to hold a threat. Every unfamiliar sound makes her flinch. The American guards are posted at the entrances, silhouettes against the dying gray light. They are an impassive, watchful presence, the arbiters of her fate. She tries to make herself smaller, to blend into the wall, to disappear into the mass of gray-clad bodies. She closes her eyes, but the image of the soldier standing over her, Corporal Miller, is burned onto the inside of her eyelids. Why had he stared at her like that? You are Frank Miller again, standing near the main door, stamping your feet to ward off the cold. The job is simple. Watch the prisoners. Don't let them riot. Don't let them escape. Wait for the trucks to arrive to take them to a more permanent camp. But your eyes keep drifting back to the girl. You saw her fall. You saw the way she just stayed there, as if the will to get up was gone. And now you see her huddled against the wall, shaking so hard you can practically see it from 50 feet away. She's not faking it. She looks like a drowned rat, a kid playing soldier who's in way over her head. Most of these prisoners are just that, kids, old men. But she seems different, more fragile. You've seen what happens when shock and exposure set in. You've seen men die from it. You think of your own younger sister back in Ohio, and a feeling you can't quite name, a knot of something like responsibility tightens in your gut. This isn't part of the job. This is something else. Slowly, deliberately, Frank begins to walk. His boots echo on the concrete floor. Each step is a hammer blow in the quiet hall. Heads turn. The German prisoners watch him, their eyes following his path. They see an American guard on the move, and they tense, expecting a shakedown, a command, an act of casual brutality. They see his path is not random. He is walking directly toward the small, shivering form of the female auxiliary. For Ilsa, the sound of those approaching footsteps is the sound of doom. She opens her eyes and sees him coming. He is taller than she remembered, his frame filling the space, casting a long shadow that swallows her. The other prisoners near her instinctively shuffle away, creating a small, isolated circle around her. She is alone, on display. Her shivering intensifies. Her mind is screaming. This is it. This is what the party leaders warned them about. The lone soldier, picking one of them in the dark. Her breath catches in her throat. She can't run. She can't fight. She can only watch as he stops, his muddy boots just inches from her own. He looms over her, his face unreadable in the gloom. He says nothing. Then slowly, he reaches a hand inside his M1943 field jacket. The movement is deliberate, measured. Ilsa's world narrows to that hand, to the space beneath the olive drab canvas. Her mind, fueled by months of horrific propaganda and the terror of the moment, can only imagine one thing: a knife, a pistol. He is reaching for a weapon. She squeezes her eyes shut, a silent, desperate prayer on her lips. She prepares for the worst.
Time stretches, thinning out until each second is a lifetime. The only sound in Ilsa's universe is the frantic drumming of her own heart and the rasp of her breath. She is coiled tight, a spring of pure terror, waiting for the impact, the pain, the end. The rustle of the soldier's jacket is deafeningly loud. Any moment now. Any moment. But the expected violence does not come. Instead, there is a soft, heavy sound. A gentle weight settles over her shoulders. It's warm. Puzzled, her mind refusing to process the sensation, Ilsa slowly opens her eyes. Draped around her is a thick, olive drab wool blanket, a U.S. Army issue blanket. It smells faintly of canvas and tobacco, a foreign yet not unpleasant scent. She stares at it, dumbfounded. The warmth from it is already beginning to seep through her damp uniform, a shocking comfort against her chilled skin. She looks up. Corporal Frank Miller is still standing over her, his face now illuminated by a sliver of moonlight from a hole in the roof. His expression is not cruel, not leering. It's weary, and perhaps a little awkward. He is holding something else in his hand, not a weapon. It's a small rectangular bar wrapped in brown paper. He holds it out to her. His lips move and he speaks, his voice low and gruff. His German is heavily accented, broken. "Cult," he says, gesturing to the blanket. Cold. Then he nods toward the bar in his hand. "For Deke. For you." Ilsa just stares. At his face. At the offered bar. A Hershey's chocolate bar. It's a mythical object, something she's only heard about in whispers, a symbol of the enemy's endless supply and luxury. Her mind is a maelstrom of confusion. This act makes no sense. It does not compute with the carefully constructed image of the brutal American monster she has carried for years. Monsters do not offer blankets. They do not give away their chocolate. Frank jiggles the chocolate bar in his hand, a silent encouragement. Ilsa's hand, trembling, moves with a will of its own. Her fingers, numb and stiff, brush against his as she takes it. His hand is calloused and warm. The contact is electric, a jolt of simple human connection that shatters the last of her terrified paralysis. She doesn't look at the chocolate. She looks at him, really looks at him. She sees the exhaustion etched around his eyes. She sees the faint scar on his chin. She sees that he is not a monster, not a symbol, not a uniform. He is just a man, a young man, like the boys she grew up with, caught on the other side of this insane, world-consuming war. The moment hangs in the air, thick with unspoken meaning. Around them, the silence in the factory hall is absolute. The other German prisoners had been watching this strange, quiet drama unfold. Their faces are a canvas of conflicting emotions, suspicion, astonishment, a flicker of hope. The other American guards watch too, their expressions unreadable. This is a breach of protocol, a crack in the hard veneer of war. Frank seems to realize this. He gives a short, almost imperceptible nod, as if to say, "There, it's done." He takes a step back, breaking the spell. He turns without another word and walks back to his post at the door, his boots once again echoing on the concrete, the sound now entirely different to Ilsa's ears. It is no longer the sound of impending doom. It is just the sound of a man walking. Ilsa is left sitting against the wall, wrapped in the impossible warmth of an enemy's blanket, clutching a bar of enemy chocolate, her entire world turned upside down.
The night deepens, but for Ilsa, a small light has been kindled in the oppressive darkness. The shivering subsides, beaten back by the thick American wool. The blanket is more than a source of warmth. It's a shield. She pulls it tighter around her, an anchor in the swirling sea of her uncertainty. She does not eat the chocolate. She holds it in her lap, her fingers tracing the unfamiliar lettering on the wrapper. It feels too precious to consume, a tangible artifact from a world she didn't believe existed, a world where an enemy could show kindness. The atmosphere in the factory hall has subtly changed. The air is still cold, the future still a terrifying blank, but the edge of raw panic has dulled. The American guards at the door are no longer faceless demons. She glances over at them. They talk in low voices. One lights a cigarette for another, the flare of the Zippo briefly illuminating their young, tired faces. They are just boys, so far from their homes. A wave of profound, heartbreaking clarity washes over Ilsa. They were all just boys, on both sides, fed stories and sent to kill other boys they'd never met. The grand, soaring rhetoric of the fatherland, the glorious struggle for Lebensraum, it all crumbles into dust, revealing the stark, simple, and obscene tragedy beneath. You are Ilsa, and you are no longer just a prisoner. You are a witness. You watch as a German NCO, a man who had been barking orders just that morning, shuffles over to an American guard and uses broken English and sign language to ask for water for a wounded man. The guard, without hesitation, unhooks his own canteen and hands it over. This small transaction, this moment of shared humanity, would have been unthinkable to her just hours ago. Now it seems like the only sane thing in a world gone mad. The foundations of her belief system, so rigidly constructed by years of indoctrination, have been demolished in a single evening. What is left is a frightening, empty space, but it is a space where something new might be built. Later, the low rumble of engines signals the arrival of trucks. The prisoners are roused, herded back out into the cold night air. They are loaded into the back of GMC deuce and a halves, crowded together under flapping canvas tops. As she is pushed up into the truck, Ilsa catches one last glimpse of Corporal Frank Miller. He is standing near a jeep, talking to a lieutenant, his face briefly lit by the truck's headlights. He doesn't see her. He is already part of the vast impersonal machinery of war again, a soldier with a job to do. For him, the moment in the factory was likely a fleeting impulse, perhaps already forgotten. But for Ilsa, it will be etched into her memory forever. As the truck lurches forward, carrying her deeper into enemy territory and toward an unknown fate, she holds the chocolate bar in one hand and clutches the American blanket with the other. The road is dark. Her country is in ruins. Her family, her future, all are question marks. The fear is still there, a cold companion in the rattling dark truck, but it is no longer absolute. The soldier's small, simple act of kindness did not end the war. It did not erase the horror she had seen, and it did not promise her safety, but it did something more profound.
It gave her back her own humanity by showing her the humanity in an enemy. In The Rebel of a Fallen Empire, under a sky still filled with the threat of violence, Ilsa Brandt, a former signals auxiliary of a defunct Air Force, finally allows herself a sliver of hope. She may be a prisoner, but for the first time in a long time, she feels she might just survive.